All right, so now let's use CSS to update the look of some of the components that we've learned. And what we can also do is like try to beautify this page basically, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to use the head tag that we just put together here as empty, didn't really do a lot with it. And then let's add some CSS or cascading style sheet spec to it. So we were saying for a table, right? Table had a header and table had a border. Now, if we remove all that, let's say the table looks like this, right? So let me remove that. And if we run it, notice the table is all cramped up. And instead of mentioning here, we can actually create a cascading style sheet data in the header tag. So let's go ahead and we're going to do that. So let's go ahead and what we're going to do is say this one, right? Just copy this. Uh, I'm going to copy some code and then explain what's going on here. So what we're saying is, look, for table, what we want is the border to be 1 pixel. It needs to be solid black. And also the form button, okay, which could be on any of the forms, needs to be of the tomato color, right? So this is the way you kind of define CSS. Again, as I said, it's not really important to understand the exact syntax as much as it is important to understand what everything is doing in the era of AI. Notice with Gemini search, we were actually, or with Google AI mode, we were able to just get the code that we wanted. And that's how things are going to be going forward, right? Where you don't need to exactly know what the syntax is, but by and large should know the overall system, how it works. So here, what we are doing is we are saying, hey, we are basically doing this, but now notice that this is basically within the head tag, but it needs to be within a style tag, right? So let's say if we run this, right, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to print the data here, right? So that's what I mean by just knowing things at a reasonably high level, right? And then just use AI for everything else, right? So and then again, you need all this foundation to understand high level courses or like detail level courses and work that you're gonna do in for organizations, right? So again, so let's go ahead and run it. So now notice here, this one's gone, but if you scroll down, notice that we are seeing right the this updated, right? Now this has not worked. We'll have to figure that out, like what happened. Okay, so let's see, right? So the reason for that is we actually never created the link between this particular CSS custom sort of a class that we created here. So these are all classes, but these are automatically available, like table, THTD are all available automatically, right? But this we created as a custom class, so we have to link it. So let's go ahead and do that within the input type. And I'm going to go ahead and say, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and say class and make this form button, right? So make this form button and now let's run it. Scroll down. So notice that in fact, actually we did it, like we actually make the input element that, sorry. So I'm going to create a class here, right? And then run. So notice that now our button is tomato red, right? Interesting, isn't it? So we can also change like the color, right? So I'm going to say color to be, let's say, green, right? Green, right? And then do this and notice that the color of the text is green, or much easier will be like say white, something like that, right? Much easier to spot. Notice, looks nice now, right? So now let's store this file and let's keep learning, right? And I'm gonna go ahead this time, copy all of this, right, into, so here we can call it like 3.html, right? So I'm gonna call it 3.html and then let's go ahead and paste that here. Okay, so we're good. All right, so let's clean everything up and start kind of from scratch here, right? Let's run it. Okay, we are good. So now what we want to do is let's go ahead and have the only elements that we are going to use in the remainder of this particular uh, course, right? Which is let's go ahead and take away all the H1, H2, H3 elements and then just have what is minimum required. So this we already did earlier, right? We are also not having like the custom CSS, so we are just here, right? Now we're trying to kind of build an app from here, right? So what works here is like, let's say if I say yes, and then instead of alert, we have a console.log, but yeah, that's basically is gonna log it. We can always alert it. So that's the baseline for our next expedition into HTML, CSS, right? So so you did realize, right, earlier within here, right? The CSS is a little complex, having to know about like, hey, forms, like classes and custom classes and stuff like that. Not very straightforward. But now we can just use Bootstrap CSS, which is a CSS framework which provides a lot of responsive styles to your HTMLs automatically, which means you can put together, um, you don't have to write any custom CSS. Moreover, you get a mobile ready UI page, right? I'm going to show you that how it is, right? So again, we start with very clean, not very beautiful page, and let's make it beautiful, okay? All right, so we have this baseline. We want to beautify it without writing any custom CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and search for Bootstrap 5 and I'm gonna say cdnurl, right? So in fact, you know what? Let's just go here and I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, right? Just the CSS URL, right? And this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, right? And put it in our page in the head. You could also, and I recommend this, you go ahead and copy this also and paste it in our head tag also, right? Now if we run, okay, notice that the table immediately starts looking much better than before, right? Everything looks nice, little bit spaced out and everything. And now what we can do, in fact, let's go ahead and even remove this one, right? Right. So we can use some Bootstrap classes. So let's search for that. So let's say, I'm gonna say Bootstrap table, right? So notice that now what we want our table to be is looking like this, right? So what we can do basically is take this, okay, and add this to our table, okay, and run it. So notice that the table immediately starts looking beautiful, right? So that's what Bootstrap does for you, right? We're going to use a little bit more of that a little later, but yeah, this is where instead of writing your own CSS, you can actually use this and then use the classes. So again, we can do Bootstrap input, right? Let's say input, or you can say form, right? And take this, right? And then what we can do is actually let's take this as is, right? And let's see what happens in our code, right? So what we are doing is within the form, we're gonna paste it here, right? And this div we're gonna complete just before we complete the form here, right? So I'm gonna say here div, right? And now let's run it. Not much of a change, but now what we're going to do is we're going to keep making this a little better. So I'm going to say take this one also. So notice instead of knowing the CSS yourself, you could actually, let's say, make this class here, run this. Notice that this is already nice looking now, right? And we can keep going like this, right? So for example, let's see if there is something for the button, right? class button primary, right? Let's take that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into our code, right? On the button, I'm gonna add that class, right? These are the classes from the Bootstrap. We didn't write any Bootstrap or any CSS. We just took it or loaded it into the head tag, and now if I run it, notice that the button looks nice, everything is good. Now something you should know, like, so I'm going to save this also as like a 4.html, right? So let's call it 4 maybe .html, and I'm gonna also save it locally and open it for you and show you like what I mean by CSS creating a responsive page, right? So I'm gonna go ahead that and do that now. So here we go. This file is opened. Now notice that this is so nicely well laid out, right? And then what I can do is I can, let's say, Control Shift I and make this small. And now notice as I move things around, it actually makes sure that the data accordingly moves and makes it mobile friendly, right? Pretty interesting, isn't it? So that's what is provided by Bootstrap by default. You don't have to write any custom CSS. You don't really have to learn it also, right? So that's really the advantage of using Bootstrap is, right? And hang on, there's one thing that I kind of missed. So we need to create like a div here and class as container, right? This is so that all of your page is under sort of a bootstrap uh, container. So I'm going to say div here and run it. Shouldn't really change a lot, right? But yeah, this makes it even more sort of responsive, right? So yeah, so be aware of that. I kind of missed this one, but yeah, okay. All right, so to summarize of what we have learned until now, we learned many different tags of HTML. We also learned a little bit of JavaScript with this function. We learned how to call that JavaScript. We learned how to look at the console. We learned a little bit of custom CSS, how to style our elements, right? We changed the element to basically have red color and then have borders here, but seemed very complicated. So what we did was we said, hey, you know what? Let's directly use Bootstrap. In the process, it makes our page look beautiful automatically, and also it makes sure that the page is mobile friendly as well. All right.